Hey everyone, today I'm going to try to make an ornithopter in Dream Car Builder. For those who don't know, an ornithopter is a plane that flies like a bird by flapping its wings. I've never built one of these before, but I have a few ideas on what I might be able to do. So let's get right into it. Alright, here I am starting off in the editor with the guy in the middle as it usually does. And I'm attaching a few triangles to this center piece. And this is just going to create a basic framing for me to attach the wings to, which I'm doing here. Now the wing sizing, I didn't really have any idea of what to make it, so I ended up just going for something that seemed like it'd be appropriate for testing. And now I'm attaching that first segment of the wings to that center piece with rods. Now rods extend and contract with keys on my keyboard. So here you can see the wings move up and down, but it's a bit extreme at the moment. And it's my fault, all I have to do is just adjust the compression of the wing to make it less aggressive. And moving up that center piece just to make it a bit more stable. You see it works. It might even be a bit on the lame side, but that's okay, because I can always just come back and fix that. This is just for testing. And now I want to get that second segment of the wings moving too. But I don't want to anchor it to the same point, I want to anchor it to the first segment so that I can move it up and down independently of what the first segment is doing. So here I have the same problem as before, just moving a bit too extreme. So after just adjusting the rods again, you see I get some good movement on the outer segments of the wing. And when I combine them, it looks pretty good too. And this is a pretty solid start. So now it's just time to add in the panels that are actually going to be creating the air resistance. Now panels are easy to add in. I just got to click all the vertices I want to attach them to, and then I got to turn up their lift coefficient, which is their air resistance. And here I didn't feel like I had too much air resistance, but they were pretty small wings, so now I'm increasing the size of them. But this isn't going to get off the ground, and it's for two reasons that I was hoping wouldn't be the case. Now the first one is that the rods are limited to a specific speed when expanding and contracting. That's nothing I can change, it's just the limit in the game. Now the second problem is that these two segments of the wings, or the two sets of rods, I would need to adjust myself. And I don't really have the ability to do that without a ton of practice, figuring out when I should be pressing one key or the other. So with those two things in mind, I decided to restart and go for a fresh design. So now I'm just making a structural base again, just something very simple. And I'm going to be doing something similar to my helicopter video, where I have a rotating pyramid in the middle. And this rotating pyramid is going to be driving the wings. Now here I'm just supporting it, and you see, it's not rotating yet, but that's because I didn't add in any jets to accelerate it. So I'm going to be doing that here, and I just need to add one jet into each side of the pyramid. Alright, now if I tell it to accelerate, you see it goes crazy. And this is actually good rotation, it's supporting it well. It vibrates a little bit, and that's just because the base isn't wide enough, and also the jets were a bit too powerful. So I toned down the jets, and you see this is much more stable. It still vibrates, but I was holding the accelerate button for like 10 seconds or something insane, so that was my own fault. And now I want to add in a second one of the rotating pyramids to the back. Now I want it to mirror the rotation of the front one, and I can do that with a 4-bar linkage. Now as the name implies, I have 4 bars connecting the front one to the back one, and now as I rotate up the front pyramid, that rotation is carried over to the back. And this is perfect. So now this gives me something to base my wing off of. So after just connecting up a few little bars and creating a little bit of a triangle structure on the base and connecting it with one bar to the pyramid in the middle, now as I rotate the pyramid, it pulls in and pushes out those triangles, creating a sort of wing-like movement. And you'll notice that the wings are vertical at the moment, and also that they're asymmetrical. But these are two issues I can actually fix easily, just by lowering the wing physically, and also just adjusting where I'm putting that back pyramid so that the two wings stay in sync. And here I fixed those two problems. So I'm going to be doing something a bit counterintuitive here, and that's detaching the wing from the base of the plane. Now this is going to make it totally unstable and fall apart, as you see here. But I have to do this because I need the angle of attack on the way up to be different from the one on the way down. Specifically, it needs to be sharper on the way up. So by taking that point and now attaching it to the rotating diamond, you see I get this very strange geometry which actually pushes itself into the ground. So I need to create a lower base for the plane so that I can actually see what's going on here. And you can see what I'm kind of going for here. So on the way up, it comes up at a bit of an angle, while on the way down, it sort of just pushes straight down. And this is what I want, because it should create more thrust on the way down since there should be more air resistance there. So just by adding in the panels again, just to see if this will work, I was a little skeptical because it seemed very unstable, but I wanted to see if I get it to work. It has the right kind of movement, but it's a bit slow, and I think it was because it was going too slow it couldn't come off the ground. So I actually gave the jets 5 times as much thrust to see what was going to happen. And, well, here's one of the main problems with this design. It likes to fold in on itself and just break. Now I have ways of mitigating this, and one of them is making a rotating pyramid way lower in the aircraft. Now this should be able to get a more stable grab in the wings. Here I didn't attach them to that point yet, but you can see how it rotates. And now I'm actually attaching the wings to that point, and now I'm giving it a quick test. And you can see for the first time I actually get off the ground, but apparently I'm very nose heavy. So I just add more weight to the tail to make it tail heavier, and that should balance it out. The problem is now I'm too heavy to get off the ground. So the easy fix to this was moving the tail further back, but adding less weight. And this gives me the same torque while being less heavy. So this fixed my problem of nose heaviness. It was actually a bit tail heavy now, but it was flying, just not super well. So by fixing the geometry of the wings a bit, just by simplifying them, and realizing it weighed less so I could move in the weight in the back a bit more, you see I get this flight. And ordinarily, I would call this a complete win. Except I completely cheated. Now this game has an interesting feature. The way air resistance, well, you can set air resistance to work, is by adjusting the balance, and this changes which side of the panel has air resistance. So before, I only gave the bottom side of the panel air resistance and the top wasn't doing anything. So it pushed down air, but on the upstroke, nothing happened, which was good, but it was kind of cheating. And there, it didn't work at all once I adjusted it so that both sides had air resistance. It was kind of coming off the ground, but not nearly as well as it was before. So I tried a few different ways to fix this design using some maybe center rotational points, but even that folded in on itself and didn't work. With actual research done, I wanted to see if I could get another one of these designs actually working. So I wanted to see if I could get his design to work in-game. So by just adding in a new structural piece and adding in another one of these rotating diamonds, a much bigger one this time actually, you can see the rotation works exactly like it did before. Now I'm just copying up the rotating pyramid again. This time it's really easy to do because all I have to do is create a rotating rectangular prism. So I'm just sporting it up here and you see it works just like you'd expect. And now I'm creating a base to have the wings sit on. I just have to use a few structural bars to get that going. And now it's time to actually add in the wings. So I'm going for a 2-segment design like I had originally. And I'm filling in all the gaps with panels. And I'm increasing their air resistance to maximum, but I'm not cheating this time by having them have one-sided air resistance. So it's going to work exactly like it should, kind of, in real life. Now I just need to connect the panels together with some structural pieces, and I'm connecting those structural pieces to the center rotating block. And by doing that, you can see it creates some oscillation. And this is for the most part what we want, but those outside pieces shouldn't be getting caught underneath the wings. They should be flapping up and down themselves. So now I'm connecting it to the center rotating bar, but I'm offsetting them by 90 degrees. And that was pretty good, but it was looking pretty unstable, so just by raising a couple pieces, and also adding in some structural bars to the bottom of the first segment, now as it rotates, you can see I'm getting pretty good movement. On the way down, it pushes straight down, and on the way up, it sort of curls up, which is good. So now I'm adding in some torque-canceling jets, because before it seemed like it was rotating a lot, and here they aren't very strong, but they are helping a little bit. And I'm also adding in a tail, and this is also to hopefully increase stability. And that's pretty easy to do, I just need to add in a few panels, turn up their air resistance, and connect a few bars to keep it stable. And now it's getting off the ground. It's still rotating a lot though, so I should be able to fix this just by increasing the thrust of those torque-canceling jets. So after doing that, you see it gets off the ground and it's still rotating a bit. I'll address this problem in the future, but for now it was pretty good. I'm also adding in a vertical stabilizer, which you see I'm doing here, very similar to how I added in the tail before. All I have to do is just add in a panel, turn up its air resistance, then connect a few bars to it. And now I'm giving it a test. And that wasn't awesome in terms of how well it was flying, but it was at least a good glide, so it gave me some hope. So by removing those center panels and doing a few other weight reduction tricks, I ended up just flying off the building to see if I could get any sort of good glide, and here I ended up falling into some weird rotational flight, and it looked pretty good, but it was really slow, and at the time I couldn't tell if it was gaining height or losing height or staying stationary, so I left it going for quite a while with just my microphone weighing down the control button. And I actually ended up gaining so much height, I was higher than I started. So now knowing this design completely could work, I had just a few more things I needed to do to get this actually fully flying. So the first thing I did was a few more weight reduction tricks. I don't show these because it's just making the frames a little bit lighter and then testing to see if it's gonna break. Kind of boring to be honest. So I just made all the panels white there, just to make it look a bit more bird-like, I guess. And I added back in those center panels, and now it's looking really good. And this was like the last major thing I did. By adding in a second set of wings, I'm gonna be driving them in the opposite direction by jets. And this is going to allow me to completely cancel out torque, since those opposite rotating jets will cancel each other out. And also, the second set of wings will just create more lift. So this will solve the problem of it gaining height super slowly. So by adding those in and then just connecting up the second set of wings using a few linkages. And my first test wasn't awesome. I forgot to anchor the top rotational piece well, so it was just sort of flopping all over the place. So with a few more anchoring pieces, you can see it wasn't falling apart anymore. Now this flight specifically wasn't very good, but it at least did prove I got it at least stable in the sense that nothing was completely loose anymore. Now this separate wing design, it wanted to fold in on itself a lot, So my solution was kind of just to link them together. Now, I was able to do this because the wings should have been perfectly in sync anyways. The reason they got out of sync was just slight variations in air resistance or whatever else. So just by adjusting that, this flight didn't look like it was going very well, but just trust me, once it gets off the ground, you'll see it was actually pretty good. Now, I ended up circling around and just crashing back into that rock, and it's because I have no way of controlling where this is going, other than telling it to go and stop. So my first thing I wanted to add was a single, I think it's called an elevon in the back. Now the reason I'm unsure of that is because I only have one, and with this I just want to adjust the pitch of the entire Ornithopter. I'm also adding in a rod, and this rod is what's actually going to be extending and contracting to push it up and down. So now in this quick test you can see as I lift it up, it pulls up and goes down too, so that works out well. So I just have to increase the air resistance a little bit of those panels. And now as I try to go, you're not going to be able to see this unfortunately, but I'm pushing down all the way, and the thing isn't pitching up. And this had a natural tendency to pitch up quite a bit, so it was canceling it out. Unfortunately, I wish I picked a bit of a better example to show there, but that's what I had. Next thing I wanted to add in was a rudder. So this is very easy to add in, it's just a single triangular panel, and I'm using a rod too. And I'm also making the elevon and the rudder kind of comically big, and this is just so I had a ton of authority over where this is going because it was very unwieldy. Both a quick test, you can see they move up and down and side to side, and it's all good. Now I want to add in the roll control, and this is actually the easiest thing I had to do. All I had to do is change out 2 framing pieces with rods, so now I could tell it to sort of roll, and that worked. It was just kind of extreme, so I have to tune it down just a little bit. But now that's looking pretty good. And I'm actually able to take off like this, and this is very possible to fly. In this example, it was my first time ever trying to fly it, and it turns out it's a bit harder to fly than I was expecting. So with a bit more practice, you can see some of these shots I got. So guys, thanks for watching. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. I have another enlisted video in the description where I'm flying this around with some live commentary. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask below. Until next time.